So here today, I am here with Farida. She is from the Empauwer organization, and they're leveraging artificial intelligence in order to remove the barriers for neurodiverse individuals in the hiring process. So I'm really glad to be here. Farida, would you like to quickly introduce yourself?
Thank you, Tenzin. Hello, everyone. My name is Farida, and I'm the business leader at Empauwer. Empauwer is an inclusive onboarding framework and engagement framework for employers of neurodiverse individuals.
Awesome. So you mentioned that Empower utilizes AI-powered capabilities to help understand the challenges that are faced by neurodiverse individuals. So could you provide us with some insight into some of the barriers that are in the hiring process and are faced uniquely by neurodiverse hires?
Sure. According to research, 1 in 160 individuals globally is on the autism spectrum disorder. They usually struggle to find work. Research says that only 20% are gainfully employed. The rest 80% who are employable are not employed or cannot stay in jobs that they find. The reason for this is that they actually compete with neurotypical individuals, and because most people on the spectrum, though not everyone, but most people on the spectrum are socially awkward and they have compromised social skills, so they lose out. So even if they find work, it's very difficult for them to stay on. And while doing research, we also realized that you can't really change an individual on the spectrum. So what can be changed is neurotypical individuals who work with them. So you sensitize them, and you kind of make them aware of the best practices to work with individuals on the spectrum. So that is the space we are trying to impact. And the difficulties faced by both parties, actually, persons on the spectrums and neurotypical individuals trying to work with them, we are taking a small step towards bridging that gap.
That was very insightful, and that is such an important sector to work in to make sure that everyone has the ability to make sure that they can break into the workspace. So also Empower's mission is to enhance the hiring process for neurodivergent individuals and to equip them with the skills needed to get the job. So and then once they're hired, they enhance their workplace competitiveness through helping them harness their skills and their strengths. And then so we were wondering, how exactly does Empower leverage AI in this setting?
Sure. So a small correction here. It's not about enhancing skills of neurodiverse individuals. It is more about sensitizing people who work with them to help them harness their strengths. So think of Empower as best practices in your pocket. It is actually a coach for people who work with neurodiverse individuals, as well as a coach for neurodiverse individuals themselves. What happens is that it actually uses artificial intelligence, machine learning, and natural language to understand the persona of a person on the spectrum. And then it also uses that information and runs algorithms to figure out what is the best way to engage with this individual. So what happens, let's take an example. For instance, say Dakota is a candidate on the spectrum, and Alex is from ABC Food, who is actually going to be working with this individual. They have just been hired. So what happens is Empower Me, which is a part of the solution, actually is used by Dakota, where Empower Me understands Dakota's personality. And while understanding that personality, it kind of maybe clears itself on like three things. So maybe it says, so Dakota says they are not comfortable with loud noises, they don't like bright lights, they are uncomfortable with a lot of crowd. So this is some simple discovery process that the engine actually understands. So when Alex actually logs in into Empower All, which is a mentor for neurotypical individuals working with the person on the spectrum, they are one sensitized to Dakota's personality, and they are kind of advised that besides other things, these are things that Dakota is uncomfortable with. So if they don't like loud noises, are you able to assign a quiet corner in the office where they can work? If that's not possible, are you able to give them noise canceling earphones? Since they don't like very bright lights, can you give them a darker corner? And because they're uncomfortable with crowds, maybe let them help them to work from home maybe 2 or 3 times a week. So these are very simple strategies, but these are in your pocket. It's much easier than doing a control find on a playbook, or going to Bing or Google and making a search and actually wondering how to engage with this individual. So it takes away the pain from that process. Now, these are very simple strategies, but then it's very possible that Alex actually hired a colleague on the spectrum for the first time, and they have no idea how to work with them. So, this is the space that we are trying to impact, and we genuinely feel, and also, this is a space where there are no digital solutions. So, artificial intelligence, machine learning, natural language processing, these are enablers to make sure that these practices are available in your pocket really, really quickly.
This is a really great segue into our next question, actually. So as we all know that AI is a tool driven by data, and having more data is usually more equivalent to a better model. So we were wondering, as you mentioned, that Empower uses AI, ML, and subsets of it, such as natural language processing, to drive one or more of the following objectives, which is to enable the virtual mentor to adapt better to the user's specific needs and challenges, and then also to enhance the interactivity of the mentor. So we were wondering if you could walk us through what Empower's data pipeline driving these AI applications look like.
Okay, so that question is more for my data science colleagues, but I'll try my best to answer it in as simple way as possible.
Yeah, no
So
worries.
so data sets which are used to train the model are very diverse. These data sets, range from different age groups. So anyone who has a digital, footprint. So this is basically aimed at right now, at least in this form, for high performing autistic individuals who can work in a corporate setting. So someone who has education. So this is their digital footprint. Then it also uses, different it uses data from different organizations, different type of academic institutions, and different geographies to get a good mix of the data. So this is basically used to train the machine. Now, when we actually launched the MVP, which is a minimum viable product, which is scheduled to be sometime in September, and like fingers crossed, that will be the bare bone minimum MVP. Basically, what that means is that the knowledge base is quite extensive, but it is not complete. And the MVP will then be, beta tested with some of our pre-registered employers, and we have quite a few across the globe who are registered because they do have a commitment to diversity and inclusion. So they would be testing it, and what we would be actually then doing is, and that's the most busy part for us, because we would be actually using user input to enhance the product from a knowledge based perspective. And then when we are ready for a launch, commercial launch in March 2022, hopefully, we will have this product with a lot of user input which is already incorporated. This is a process which is ongoing, and it will keep going on, because the knowledge base is enhanced on a regular basis. Because you don't kind of stop there, there would be new situations which would be coming up. So just to kind of bring it all together, the initial MVP would be very, very basic. We wouldn't really kind of put in too much effort on look and feel and things like that at this point in time. It is just about getting user input and understanding how it is helping them, and what are the things that we can do to improve this offering. And when we are commercially ready to launch, we should have the product a lot more succinct and aligned to user expectations. And then we could keep enhancing it. So it's how artificial intelligence comes into play, is that it augments human experience. It is an enabler. It is not the end in itself. It's a means to the end. So to achieve that very quick engagement with the bot to understand what are the best practices, artificial intelligence actually makes it a lot quicker. Therefore, whatever a machine can do very easily, that's what is being done in that. So anything that's repetitive, finding work, enhancing knowledge base, what a human can do, they can actually put in more time in doing that qualitative engagement, rather than wasting time in finding solutions.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, that currently Empauwer is in the midst of building out its MVP, which is very exciting. And we were wondering if you think that we can extrapolate the potential of Empauwer. Do you believe that technology that Empauwer is currently building out could actually also benefit in a school setting? This is something that one of my colleagues were actually interested in.
Oh yeah, sure. So there are various use cases. In fact, some of our beta partners are academia, and it will be actually used when a neurodiverse student joins a class. So the teachers and the other students understand what's the best way for engaging with them and work with them. So this is a framework which is actually applicable in many use cases. We start with larger groups of enterprises because it is easier to kind of get data to then make it align to even smaller settings. So this is definitely useful in academia, government, enterprises, NGOs, etc. And our partners who would actually work with us on beta are across all these sectors.
It's very exciting to hear that Empower and the work that you're doing here is able to be applicable to many sectors and
Yes.
in various environments. So something that I've also been meaning to ask is that through working at Empower, I'm sure that you've been learning more about individuals who are on the autism spectrum. And I was wondering if there are any like key takeaways from that experience that you believe more people should be aware of.
Yeah, sure. So there is a saying in autism circles that when you actually meet one person with autism, you've met one person with autism. So they are so distinctly different from each other. So there is no one size fits all. But what works generally is, instructions which are very clear. Because, we neurotypical individuals tend to actually be very ambiguous in the instructions that we give. So for instance, if I want my, say my desk to be cleared, I'll say clear my desk, and then it is up to the individual to decipher what is the next step. But to a neurodiverse individual, specifically on the autism spectrum, it is necessary to give them very clear instructions. I want my desk to be cleaned with a cloth. You need to take down everything that is on my desk, put it back in a particular place. This is considered trash and this can go in the trash can. So your instructions have to be very clear. I have 4 neurodiverse colleagues who work with me, and it's been a very steep learning curve for us as well, because it is about making sure that you let them know what to do rather than just not what to do and stop there. And I'll share a small experience which kind of touched me. I have a colleague, Matteo, who is also on the spectrum. He's a very cheerful young man, and he had a bad cold when he actually joined us. So he would, and then, he would actually sneeze and cough into the tissue and leave it everywhere. And this was, getting other colleagues really worked up that, and especially because we are in this whole pandemic situation. So people were getting really worked up. And if I had something like Empower All, I would have known what to do in that situation. But it was a steep learning curve because instead of if you tell him don't do it, he would walk around with the tissue every day because he doesn't know what to do with it. So we said, okay, let us give him instructions as to what to do with the tissue. So we gave him a dustbin and said that you put the tissue here. He followed instructions to the T. The next day, the cleaner actually moved the dustbin somewhere else. And this nice guy, he actually walked with the tissue in his hand for a while till I could tell him that if this dustbin is not available, you can use this dustbin to throw the tissue. So the thing is that they follow instructions to the T. They are very, very process driven. So this is an example, but that just shows that anything that requires process, recall value, they are very good at it. So probably use their strengths for these things, and also give very clear instruction. That has been my personal biggest takeaway from this whole engagement and working with neurodiverse individuals.
That was very insightful. And I'm also personally really glad to hear that there are actual neurodiverse people working on the Empower project, because I think it's so important that there are people on the team in order to reflect an authentic experience of what neurodiverse people go through, especially because the target audience in this in the application of Empower is for neurodiverse individuals. So my next question is, what is your approach to employers in order to adapt Empower and into their hiring process for people on the autism spectrum?
So Empower is not something which will replace something that enterprises are already using. Also, this is pretty much an untapped space because there are no digital solutions, at least I am aware of, in this space. So, with the employers, they don't need to change anything of what they are using. Empower very beautifully fits into their ecosystem because it's basically, pre-screening and engagement space. So, our approach to employers is that if they already have a diversity and inclusion agenda, then we help them to further it by making it easier for them to engage with neurodiverse individuals. There are a lot of enterprises which have a commitment to bring neurodiverse individuals on board. The problem is that even though they want to do it, they don't know what's the best way to engage, because and a lot of them don't have the luxury of time to invest in research to find this out. So we want to make this process very simple for them, and that is our approach to most of our or all of our pre-registered employers, as well as the ones who will come on board later. That you don't need to change anything. This is just an additional tool for you to make sure that your engagement is qualitative, and you are able to harness strengths of this talent pool rather than getting lost in translation as to what's the best way to engage with them.
I'll definitely plus one on something you said about there not being many applications similar to Empower about having like empowering neurodiverse individuals in the hiring process. And that's what got me personally so excited about Empower, because it was so novel and so unique. And I was really excited to see how AI was being included in your application. So this kind of concludes all my questions for you. And I would like to thank you so much for joining us here today and for taking the time out of your schedule. Are there any concluding words or any last things that you'd like to share with our audience?
Maybe this is the beginning, not the last thing. And the thought that I would like the viewers to leave with is that any construct of any organization has to be diverse and inclusive, because that is the representation of the actual world, and that is the representation of their customers as well. So therefore it is very important that everyone has equal opportunity to their right to work, because work is a very important part of any individual's life. Also, uh, Empower has given me this opportunity to work on something which is very close to my heart, that is a diverse and inclusive world, because I sincerely believe that a diverse and inclusive world is a better one. So to all the viewers here, take a look at our website, which is at www.empauwer.com, empauwer.com. If you like to understand more, I'm on LinkedIn, Farida Charania. Get in touch with me and I'll be happy to kind of give you more information. If anyone would like to, especially students, if you like to volunteer as a beta tester, get in touch with us. We are actually recruiting a lot of testers right now. And anything else, if anyone likes to know more, just even out of interest, I am just a message away. So thank you, Tenzin. This was amazing. I really enjoyed this discussion. And yeah, thank you. Have a nice evening. I think it's evening for you, right? It's morning for us.
Yeah, it's evening here. I'm really excited to see Empower build out its MVP, and I'll definitely be keeping tabs. And I'd like to thank you as well.
Thank you, Tenzin.